When I found out my husband was cheating, I felt numb. It wasn't rage or sadness that hit me first, but a cold, sinking feeling in my stomach. I had suspected something for a while. The late nights at work, the sudden need to keep his phone glued to his side, the distant way he spoke to me. But suspicions weren't enough. I needed proof. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I played along, acting like the devoted wife while quietly gathering evidence. I checked our phone records and found repeated calls to an unknown number. I managed to get into his laptop one night while he was in the shower and found the messages. Long, intimate conversations, photos, plans to meet up in hotels. He wasn't just having a fling. He was in a full-blown relationship with her. That was when the hurt kicked in, but I swallowed it down. There would be time for emotions later. Right now, I had work to do. I started by securing my future. I moved some money into a private account, enough to ensure I wouldn't be left struggling. I met with a divorce lawyer and laid everything out, making sure I had a solid plan. I gathered every piece of evidence, from screenshots to bank statements, that showed suspicious transactions, dinners, gifts, hotel bookings. I even hired a private investigator for extra confirmation. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. I started pulling away from him, just slightly, so he wouldn't notice too much. I stopped initiating conversations, let him stay out late without questioning him, and avoided intimacy. If he was already getting what he needed elsewhere, I wanted him to think I was losing interest too. Meanwhile, I prepared. I found an apartment under a friend's name so he wouldn't suspect anything. I started separating my things little by little, moving them into storage, so when the time came, I could leave without much trouble. The night before I confronted him, I cooked his favorite dinner. I sat across from him at the table, watching as he ate, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. He smiled at me between bites, made small talk, even told me he loved me. The audacity of it all almost made me laugh. I had spent years loving this man, trusting him, believing in him, and all along, he had been lying straight to my face. The next evening, I asked him to go out for dinner. I picked a nice restaurant, made sure we got a private booth, and let him think it was just another normal night. Halfway through the meal, I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. I slid it across the table and watched his confusion turn into panic as he opened it. Inside were printouts of all the messages, the photos, the receipts, even a few images the investigator had taken of him and her together. The last thing in the envelope was the divorce papers, already signed on my end. He stared at them, his face draining of color. He stammered, tried to say my name, but I held up a hand to stop him. "I just wanted to see the look on your face when you realized you lost everything," I said calmly. He opened his mouth again, but I stood up before he could speak. I had already blocked him on everything: phone, social media, email. I had already moved my things out of our house. Oh, and the house. It was in my name, thanks to a prenup. His car? Also mine since I had bought it. His credit cards? Canceled. His bank account? Part of it frozen due to the divorce proceedings. I walked out of that restaurant without looking back. The next morning, I heard from a mutual friend that he had gone home only to find it half empty, his access cut off from everything. He tried to call me, but of course, I never answered. Last I heard, the woman he was cheating with didn't want to take him in. Turns out she was fine with sleeping with a married man, but she didn't want to be his savior once he was broke and alone. Revenge wasn't about ruining his life. It was about making sure he knew exactly what he had lost. And he did.